Everyone, welcome to today's Wednesday Wisdom. I'm Tracy Thomas, the Communications Manager for the Black Chamber of Commerce of Palm Beach County, and you are in for a treat today. Before I introduce today's speaker, I just wanted to do a little bit of housekeeping. We have quite a few people on the call here. That is awesome. I just want to make sure that you all keep your microphones muted. We will have a Q&A after the presentation, so you can unmute yourself and raise your hand, or you can even drop any questions that you may have in the chat, and we'll capture those for the Q&A. Okay, and also if your video camera is working, you can put your cameras on. We always love to see those beautiful smiling faces. It's only optional though, but let's go ahead and jump into today's agenda. Today's Wednesday Wisdom is sponsored by BBIC, which is the Black Business Investment Corporation, and Pathways Capital Funding. I do not see, I want to make sure I'm not missing, but I do not see a representative on the phone or online right now. Hold on. Okay, I do not have them on, but we just want to say thank you, BBIC, for supporting the Black Chamber and all that you do with our businesses in Palm Beach County. I want to go ahead and move on to our speaker, who is a Deere law firm, and Chioma Deere is a Florida licensed attorney and the owner of the Deere law firm in West Palm Beach, a native of Jamaica. Chioma graduated from Pace University Law School in New York and moved to Florida to make Palm Beach County her home in 2006. Chioma is a technology certified lawyer with a background in civil litigation. In her law firm, Chioma helps clients create customized and effective estate planning solutions in the areas of trusts, wills, probate, and Medicaid asset protection while safeguarding their legacy using the power of technology. So without further ado, Attorney Deere, welcome.
Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for the kind introduction, Tracy. My name is Chioma Deere. I am the owner of the Deere Law Firm, and I'm excited to do my very quick presentation for you today so that we have lots of time to answer your questions. So I'm going to share my screen. And as I'm doing so, if you have questions that come up, please feel free to make them known in the chat, and I will pause at certain points. This is supposed to be an interactive session with all of you. I love hearing from you. So if, as I'm talking, if something jumps out to you, please feel free to chime in the chat, or, do any type of emoticons or anything like that so that everyone can kind of feel with the energy that's going on. I really appreciate that, and I welcome that. A lot of what we're going to be talking about today is emotional, because estate planning is emotional. But I am proud to be able to support our community with this very important educational estate planning information. As Tracy already mentioned, I am not native of Florida, but I have been a part of the West Palm Beach and Palm Beach County community for some time. This is some more information about me, but I also wanted to share with you why I decided to become an estate planning attorney. The main reason I became an estate planning attorney is because I realized that a lot of times people think of estate planning in terms of death, when it's really about the living. One of my family members got sick, and we realized that we couldn't help them because they didn't have any documents in place, and they just needed help while they were alive to take care of their life, take care of their business, take care of their minor children, and all of that wasn't in place and could have been put in place if they had an estate planning plan with an attorney in place. So I decided to do that as a part of my practice as an attorney here in Florida, and I'm really happy that I decided to do that. What we're going to go into today is some simple topics to engage you into thinking about estate planning and considerations for wills and trusts and other ways that you can protect your family. I am a Florida attorney, so I'm going to be talking about Florida law, Florida things, and how you can protect yourself with an estate planning attorney if you're a resident here in Florida. Now, before we move on, I'm going to do a little bit of teaching. There's going to be lots of stories. I'm going to be a little bit of teaching, so I hope you will bear with me. There are 4 important things that I always talk about when we're talking about estate planning. And it really goes to making sure that we understand some of the fundamentals when it comes to estate planning. So it's usually talking about estate planning, which is traditionally wills and trusts. That focuses on gathering wealth, preserving it, and controlling how it's distributed after your death. It also helps to make sure that those material wealths are protected while you're alive, and of course, minimizing taxes. The next thing is wills, and that's what usually people think of when they think about estate planning, your last will and testament. And that is usually a written direction controlling what happens to your estate, but also what happens to your minor children. And that in Florida, a will is the only thing that governs everything that you own at the time of your death. But what happens after a will is usually probate, because wills have to be probated if there are assets in the estate. Now, probate is something that we'll go into a little bit here today as well, but it's usually if there's a will, the will has to be proved. People get involved with court, and a judge more often than not decides what happens with your estate, especially if you don't have a will in place. But the other thing that I want to talk about today are trusts, and how a living trust or a revocable trust, which is a legal agreement, can be a full replacement for a will and all of the things that come with a will and probate. So now with that under our belts, we have some education in place. We know what all of this is about. We have our 4 legs to our table. Let's talk about the myths about estate planning, as well as some legends that we will likely remember. How many people can tell who this is? He is beloved. He is beloved, and he passed away at the age of 43. I thank you for jumping in the chat there. I appreciate that. Yeah, Chadwick Boseman died at 43, but he died without a will. And a lot of people were really surprised about that, especially given the fact that he was so famous and hopefully making lots and lots of money. He did have a $3.8 million estate, which many people thought was small. There are a lot of people who have a $3.8 million estate walking around here, and it isn't something that people really consider when they add things up. One thing that happened with Chadwick Boseman is because he didn't have a will, and because supposedly the story goes that one of his mentors told him to get married because he knew that he had cancer. He married his wife 2 months before he passed away. So she did get some of the estate, but there was a court battle that went on between his parents, who would have gotten the estate if he wasn't married, and her, and they ended up splitting that estate. A lot of things could have been avoided. 1, if he had a will, right? And 2, if maybe he had a trust in place. Does anyone have any kind of story that they can recall that happened with a probate issue in their family? I hear those kind of stories all the time. And one of the things that I wanted to kind of go through with you is to dispel some of the myths that come with why people avoid setting their estate plans in the first place. The first one is, if you have a will when you die, then everything will work out just fine. And as I mentioned before, when you have a will, that may not be the case. This is all about going to probate and all of the issues that come with it. What do you think happens in probate? The main thing that usually happens in probate is you have to go to court. And in Florida, if you have a certain type of probate case, you have to get one of me to show up in court with you. You have to have an attorney represent you, especially if it's an estate that requires formal administration. And a lot of that can get really complicated, right? Especially when you're dealing with multiple family members, when you're dealing with people all over the world. Generally, it's just about transferring assets that the decedent owned. It's usually expensive. It can be time consuming and public. And in addition to all of that, what do you think happens if you own, say, a house or a piece of land? As a Florida resident, you pass away and you own land in Vermont, in Georgia. There's a lot of land that people in Florida own in Georgia. What do you think happens in all of those states if you only have a will? The answer is you have to open a probate case in every single one of those states. And people think that, like somebody said in the chat, people thought that if you have a will, you just kind of wave that will around and magic things happen. That's not how it works in Florida. Even if Chadwick had a will, he would have had to go through this whole thing. His estate would have to go to some version of this in the state that he resided. And one example of this is having to go through this kind of process. It does take a lot of time and it is very cumbersome. Who can tell me what's in this picture with the purple on the door? So it's Prince's something, right? It's actually Prince's vault. Yeah, that's his vault in Minnesota that had gold bars, unreleased music, about $300 million worth of assets. He did not leave a trust. He did not leave a will. His estate wasn't wrapped up until this July, and he passed away in 2016. So even though Prince was prolific in everything that he did and was just an amazing person that blessed us so many times over, he didn't have his estate in place. And there was so many things that had to happen to finalize its estate, including his estate executors making deals after his death in order to pay his $100 million tax debt for his estate. It was really, really sad, but all because he didn't leave anything in place. So we are talking about Prince and his $300 million estate. But remember Chadwick, he had a $2.3 million estate by the time the probate was done because they had to go through all those fees and all the different court battles that ate away at his estate. So many of us on the call today probably are inching up, if not already at the $2.3 million mark. And some people think that estate planning is for the wealthy, and everybody has their own idea of what wealthy might mean. Some people don't think that their estate having $2.3 million is wealthy when you compare it to other things and what goals you may have in your life. But even if you have a $700,000 estate, as in you own a house in Palm Beach County, just add that up. You're already close to it if you have a big enough house. And then all your other parts of your estate, you would be facing probate, just like Chadwick, just like Prince. And there's certain types of probate cases that you can have. It depends on the level and how much money is in your estate that you leave behind. Even with a will, you can have full-blown probate, which is formal administration, or simplified probate, which is summary administration. But many people dealing with probate, many people are left dealing with probate when all that person had in their estate was a house. And that could have been taken care of as well with some simple estate planning. Now, you don't need a will and a trust, right? But if you have a trust, you need a will. And I can explain that further as we go on. The other thing that a will does is it takes care of children. And speaking of children, guess how many children BB King had? I see y'all counting the stick figures on the screen. That was to throw everybody off. It's a little bit less than that. He actually had 15 children, none of which were from his 2 marriages. He had his children all showed up to claim against his estate. He did have a will and a trust, but he had a lot of kids. And I don't know what his relationships were with the kids, but for me, it's just to give you an idea of some things to think about when you're doing your estate planning and how you need to account for family dynamics in all of that. And his children lined up all their lawyers to go fight for his estate. But who knows, what would have happened if he had set it up a little bit better in the beginning. I actually get that all the time, that people are just going to leave their house in the name of their how many children, knowing that their kids may not agree with it. Somebody wants to sell, somebody don't want to sell for that much, somebody don't want to sell at all. And now your kids that you think you're leaving the family home to are fighting over the family home. There are simpler ways to go about that. If you have any question in your mind, I always recommend that you sell that sucker, especially if you didn't grow up there. It's like the house that they bought when they moved to Florida. Don't have your kids go through that. All right. Raise your hands if you have life insurance. Everybody needs life insurance. Y'all please don't be doing any of that, of the GoFundMes or anything like that, because now you know better. And somebody said in one of the brunches that I have that now that you know that you need life insurance, I'm going to be in the 3rd row holding all of my coins and not donating to your GoFundMe, because you should. It really is a lot easier to have it now. Thank you for acknowledging how important this is. But what about your minor children? A lot of people sign up for these life insurance policies, and they end up having their kids, their 2-year-old, on their life insurance. And that actually could complicate things quite a bit. But here's a really hard thought. What if your child or children predecease you? You outlive your children and you only had their names on your life insurance policy. Then those proceeds are not going to drop right back into your estate that you thought you were, avoiding by putting beneficiaries on that life insurance policy. And now your family, whoever is left behind is going back to probate court to probate that part of your estate. So let's talk about leaving your life insurance policies to your kid. What if you leave $100,000 to an 18-year-old that you know right now? What do you think that they'll do with it? That's the question for the chat. What do you think that they will do? All right, so it's not $100,000, it's $500,000. You got a good life insurance deal and you maxed it out, and now you left $500,000 for your 18-year-old who is not a minor, right? Yeah, I mean, they may know what to do with it and invest it properly, but even if they have that in their mind, you don't know who's around them. All of a sudden, the girlfriend wants to get married. The house may be out of reach for $500 in Palm Beach County. And maybe they just want to buy a car. What about leaving that type of money to someone who's an addict or someone who is dealing with other type of problems in their life. A lot of times when you're talking about things like this, you really have to walk it all the way through. Even if it's a minor, then you're talking about guardianship, still sending your family and loved ones back to court and having to deal with that court process. But then what if you leave that money to your children and they're married, and with the divorce rate that we have, they get a divorce? How much do you think that spouse is going to get out of that money that you left for your child? I mean, if it drops into the right account, I guess family lawyers will say it's marital asset, right? So the money that you left for your child is gone to someone who maybe you may not have even liked in the first place. 50%. Yeah, that's right. All right, so let's go to some more legends. A lot of people can recognize this family and all its wonderful dysfunction, which probably reflects a lot of our families and all the stuff that happens in our family. But what happened in Bobby Christina Brown's case is she, at the age of 14, was the sole heir of Whitney Houston's estate. Remember, Whitney Houston was divorced from Bobby Brown at the time of her death, and Whitney left no will. Her father, Bobby Christina's father, initially had claims on the estate, right? But of course, the judge was like, what are you talking about? You're divorced. You're not entitled to anything. So Bobby Christina gets everything. And tragically, she takes her own life. And the sole heir to her estate is Bobby Brown. So the thing that her mom was trying to get away from, leaving everything to Bobby Brown, actually ended up happening, which was really, really sad, because now he has a full claim to that estate, which is everything that Whitney Houston left to her daughter. What do you think that you should do, especially as a divorce, if you've gone through a divorce or seen other people in your family gone through a divorce? What are some of the things that you can do to make sure that your estate doesn't end up flowing back to the spouse that you may have cut ties with? So those are some of the things that I talk about with my clients all the time. Then we talk about, remember I talked about, that estate planning is for the living. Well, a power of attorney is one of those things that is for the living, right? Because at the time of your death, the power of attorney authority dies with you. When do you think a power of attorney in Florida becomes in effect? Do you think here are the options? When you say so, when you become incapacitated or disabled, or immediately? When do you think that power of attorney kicks in Florida? I got some good answers in the chat. Thank you very much. And we got some correct answers. The correct answer is that as soon as you sign that power of attorney, that doable power of attorney, usually in Florida, before 2 witnesses and a notary, it is in effect immediately. And there are a lot of reasons that the Florida legislature did that, especially when you're dealing with a lot of older people and not having to go and figure out how to prove that the person is incapacitated. So that's how they set it up here in Florida. But what I find a lot that has happened is people get these power of attorneys because they want to help grandpa and mom and grandma get stuff done. And the cousin comes in and it prints off a power of attorney from the internet, and they're going to take care of all of this stuff. But then grandma becomes incapacitated. She develops dementia or Alzheimer's or some other thing that may cause her to not be able to communicate effectively or be able to make legal decisions for herself. She may even need long-term care. So now the nephew, thinking that he's going to help grandma or grandson thinking he's going to help grandma, tries to do some things with this power of attorney. And very often, because those types of documents from the internet aren't crafted or aren't made sure that they're up to date with Florida law, they actually can't help the person to do certain things like apply for Medicaid, make sure that she has the type of help that she needs, or go to a banking institution and make sure things are being transferred properly. And because they don't have that authority and she is incapacitated now, she can't sign a new one, they have to go to court. They have to go to probate court to get a guardianship for grandma. So all of that is to say, make sure that you get your estate planning done properly, because some of these internet printout things that you get don't have all the power that you need to create a qualified income trust to make sure that your grandma or your grandpa can get Medicaid so that they don't have to go broke in order to afford long-term care when they really need it. Everybody knows him, right? And everyone's like, no, 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 tell me it ain't so. Tell me he did it right. He didn't do it right. So powers of attorneys end at death, right? A lot of people think that if you're a power of attorney, now you have the authority to make changes and make decisions in someone's estate, and they don't. Whoever they picked in their will is who it's going to be, not you that may have helped them while they were alive. Now, Michael Jackson actually tried to avoid probate. He set up the Michael Jackson Family Trust, and he made a big mistake that so many people do when they get these trusts put together. I can't imagine that he didn't use a lawyer, but depends on what the lawyer does with them after they create this trust. This Michael Jackson Family Trust was not funded. He didn't have anything in it. He only had a will. So he had to go to probate. His estate had to go to probate court as well. Multiple claims and countersuits and lawsuits and royalty demands and all of that. Let's jump to the fifth myth. A lot of people think, just like when you print off that power of attorney for grandma so that you're going to fix this, a lot of people think that when they say, you know what, I'm going to put my bank account in my sister's name. So if anything happens to me, I know you heard this before, anything happens to me, she'll have access to the money and she can go get it and take care of me. I hear that over and over and over again. But joint tenancy, which is what that would be, you are making someone else a joint owner of your account, means that when you pass away, or well before that, that person has full access to those funds. If that's where you kept your savings to pass on to your grandchildren, that person is not legally required to give any money to anybody else. Those funds are theirs. And then your stuff that you put in your account that you wanted your sister to help you with is now subject to that person's debts, maybe even creditor actions and life problems, because maybe they have a money shortage and now your bank account is up for grabs. Certainly what happens afterwards. But then what if they predecease you? Then you're back to square one as being the only person on that account. And when you pass away, that account goes back to probate. It has to be probated as well if you don't have anything else in place. I have two quick stories about that. One was a son who was a power of attorney, and the son helped his mom sell her home, got her set up in a small apartment, got her a nurse and everything, like took really good care of her. But he did something that he didn't think was wrong. And what he did was he took the money from the sale of the mom's house and put it in their joint bank account. What do you think happened when the mom eventually passed away? Oh, and he had two other brothers. So what do you think happened? Mom had no will, and the brothers were not in town. They weren't taking care of mom. What do you think happened in that family when they found out that all the money is in his solely owned account now? Yeah, everybody was like, well, wait a minute. How come you end up with all the money from the house that we grew up in? And so things like that happen all the time. But the other issue here, if you are an issue spotting attorney, like some of us litigators are, is that person took the money from the house sale and put it in their account, and they were the power of attorney. So that may also have been a violation of their fiduciary duty to guard against self-dealing, because he basically gave himself the money. So yeah, they were pretty upset. And in that case, you know, mediation happened. They didn't have to go to court to fight over it, and they did end up splitting it. But things like that can cause really big rifts in families. And I'm sure the mom wanted all three to get the money, but thought that the son was going to do the right thing. But the son didn't do the right thing by putting the money there in the first place. So we talked a little bit about trust and how a trust can be a full replacement for a will and can avoid probate. And that's one of the things that I help my clients with all the time. This person did it right. I mean, Kobe has done so many things right in his life, and it's a tragedy that we lost him. But he left so many great lessons for families all over the world. And for estate planning attorneys, for a Black estate planning attorney, he is definitely someone that I look to say, this is how you do it. So Kobe left all of his wealth in a trust. That means the rights to Black Mamba, all of the money that was coming to him from any sponsorship, post-mortem, any businesses that he set up while he was alive, all of that is encompassed. That's why nobody heard anything about Kobe Bryant's estate. There were no fights. The only reason anybody even know anything about his estate is because he passed away before updating his trust to add his last daughter, who was very young at the time of his death. And that's all that his trustee asked the court to do, to make sure that his daughter was also included in the trust. And these are some of the reasons that people set up trust, right? It avoids probate. It allows you to control where your hard-earned assets and wealth are going to go, and that they go to who you want, when you want, and they're handled by the people or persons that you want. And the trust holds a title to all of your assets and sits there quietly, invisibly, ready to act, even while you're alive. And those are some of the great reasons to have something set up like that. And I know we're moving a little bit into my time. So I wanted to also caution that you have to fund the trust. Remember Michael Jackson's trust? It didn't have anything in it. So if you're going to set up a trust, make sure that you work with an attorney, an estate planning attorney like myself, that will make sure that your trusts are funded at the time that you create them. And then make sure that you continue to maintain them as your life goes by. So here are some honorable mentions. Aretha Franklin had 3 handwritten wills. So that was a big issue. Stan Lee's daughter filed a lawsuit against his caretakers because she thought that there was elder abuse going on there. Heath Ledger actually had a will that was giving everything to his siblings and his parents, but then he had a child before he died. And the touching story there is his siblings and parents gave all 20 million back to his daughter. Tupac's estate went on for a long time because he passed away without a will. All people trying to get a piece of his wealth. So yes, you do need an estate plan so that you can avoid a lot of these issues that happen with people's wealth, even while you're alive. When you're working with estate planning attorneys, these are some of the things that I recommend. When I say avoid online, I don't mean avoid online attorneys because I'm a virtual attorney to a lot of my clients. I mean, avoid the download here type documents that probably don't have anything to do with Florida law. I've found a lot of trusts show up in my office with California law as a basis, things like that. So make sure you work with a firm that will help you and listen to you, and make sure that they're also talking to you about what a holistic view of what legacy and wealth is. And the example that I have of that is a pastor and a community leader who has a history in the community. And by just dealing with that person's wealth, you're going to lose their legacy, right? You want to make sure that you help them pass that on. One of the things that I do in addition to things like this is I present educational webinars. Nowadays, I'm doing it not as often as I did before, but I also have it available on my website. And when you register for an on-demand or a live webinar with me, talking about in-depth stories and in-depth details about estate planning and how my firm can help you with that, you'll be entitled to a free consultation. Here's an opportunity for you to jump ahead of the line, get your head start on a free consultation with me. Use your phone to schedule your consultation. We'll get back in touch with you to make sure that you watch that webinar so that you can get it for free. My consultations are usually $450, but don't worry, we'll get you a reminder. So if you schedule your consultation now, you'll get a free consultation with me, and we'll make sure you watch the webinar so you are fully educated. And when you meet with me, you're just talking about your stuff, not what is a will and what is a trust. Although this one's pretty good too. Now we've come to that point where we're talking a lot about any questions you might have. So I'm going to go into that. I'm going to put the QR code up while we answer some of the questions. So I have the chat up so I can see. I think one person said, how can I protect my assets from all of this? Putting a customized estate plan together is one way that you can do that. Remember, everybody, estate planning is not a set it and forget it thing. I know some of y'all have wills that y'all made from 20 years ago when the baby was just born. That's not really the way to do estate planning. You want to make sure that you're updating it as time goes by. Kind of like when you update your life insurance, your car insurance, things like that. Certainly, if you buy a new home, you get divorced, you get married, your parents move in with you, things like that.
Okay.
I have another question that I saw. I'm sorry.
We have a hand that's up. Tacola.
Oh, I think Tacola raised her hand when I was like, who has life insurance? So yeah, Tacola. So if Tacola had a question, then of course, please let me know. But I was reading in the chat. I saw that one person wanted to know, does funding the trust means cash and land, and cash and real land, book transcript, art, etc., property? And the answer to that is yes, that is essentially what funding a trust means. It means the trust owns it, not you. So at the time of your death, no one has to go to court to ask the court to transfer those assets out of your name into the name of whoever is supposed to get it. The trust will already own it, so there's no need to go to probate for that. And the trust will have all the instructions as to what to do with those. Funding the trust means making the trust the owner or the beneficiary. What about rights to music that you've written? Those things can also be an interest that your trust owns. So yes, you can make sure that the trust has access and ownership and control over those rights, and you can control it even after you passed away. All right. I'm so glad that everyone could join me today. I don't know if there are any other questions. This is my contact information. One more time, that's my child. I'm very proud of him. He's at Stetson. And he's also one of the reasons I do estate planning, to make sure that things are left in a right way for him, but also so that we as Black people control our wealth And it is not a haphazard, it's not, oh, whatever happens after my death, they can deal with it. It really is about making sure that we're all collectively eliminating the wealth gap. And so that our wealth is not being dissipated and not going into our communities, not going into our families, not supporting the important things that we need to support as a community and as a collective. So I'm going to stop sharing. I would love to hear from you if anyone has any other questions, but Tracy, I also know that there are other things you wanted to get done in this session today.
Well, this is awesome. So thank you so much, Dr. Deere. Or, I'm
sorry,
attorney,
I'm not a doctor.
Attorney Deere. And I apologize, Jamaica. You're from Jamaica. I'm sorry about that in the beginning.
That's okay.
We do have today's hosting sponsor on. If you wanted to jump on, who's that? I see Markeisha with BBIC. Markeisha, you want to bring any greetings to our guests? Let's connect. Okay. Okay, so she's not responding. I'm hoping that she's still on, but I'm going to jump into our programs, our events that we have on the calendar. I just want to make sure that you guys are checking out our events calendar. We have all kinds of stuff that's going on for the month of October. October the 6th, tomorrow, we have a lunch and learn at Kaiser University. That's the flagship campus off of Military Trail. Big business for small business. We'll have Solid Waste Authority there, as well as Palm Beach County. Learn how to do business with Palm Beach County. October the 17th, we have a ribbon cutting ceremony for Amazon Hub in Delray. You guys, this is the first Black-owned, woman-owned Amazon Hub in the country. Come out and support our member. We would love to see you at the ribbon cutting ceremony. And we have an in-person lunch and learn on October the 19th. This will be our very own board member, Mark Parks, who is going to teach you how to grow your business and make your dreams come true. So all of these events are on the calendar. Make sure to go over to the Black Chamber's website, blackchamberpbc.com, to register for these events. And with that being said, we have our president on, our board chair, Grassford Smith. If you would like to provide us with closing remarks, Grassford.
Hey, Chioma, how you doing?
Hi, Grassford.
Yeah, you did such a good job. And we're claiming her as Jamaican, by the way. I want to put that out there. So BBIC was our sponsor for today's session. We, of course, are grateful for that partnership with BBIC. And you all know that they are instrumental in financing Black-owned businesses here in Palm Beach County. So please keep them in mind for your business needs on that. Chioma, you did a phenomenal job. And I would just add, when you're looking for an attorney, me being an attorney myself, a commercial litigator, you want someone who is, I think, first and foremost, a good person that you can trust. And Chioma is certainly that. And she's obviously incredibly skilled in a very specialized area. So you should definitely consult her for her services, and I'm sure she'll do a phenomenal job. So thank you, Chioma. You all know that we have this series to give you all the information that you need. And I think every single person that is represented by one of these boxes need the service that Chioma offers. So I just wanted to end that way. Thank you all for your time, and keep the Black Chamber in mind when you are looking for business opportunities or what have you. We have pretty much everything you can think of under our umbrella. Chioma, you did fantastic. Can't wait to talk to you.
Thank you. And thanks so much for the support. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Thanks.
Guys, enjoy the rest of your day.